Some people will smile at you while secretly hoping you fail. Have you ever noticed how certain people change the moment your life starts improving? Not openly, not aggressively, but subtly. Their tone changes, their energy shifts, their support becomes strangely inconsistent. And the strange thing about people is, jealousy rarely looks like hatred in the beginning. Most of the time, it disguises itself as friendship, as concern, as humor, as advice. But with time, you begin to notice something disturbing. Certain people become uncomfortable the moment you start becoming more confident, more respected, or more successful. I am the Watcher, and here, in Shadow Insight, we observe the hidden mechanisms behind human behavior. In this episode, you will discover 7 signs that reveal when someone secretly envies you, even if they never admit it. And the most unsettling part is this: the people who envy you the most are often the ones who stay closest to you. So before we begin, tell me in the comments, have you ever felt someone change after you started succeeding? And if these observations speak to you, subscribe to Shadow Insight, because human nature always reveals itself eventually. Have you ever shared good news with someone and their reaction felt strangely empty? Not hostile, not openly negative, just cold. You tell them about a promotion, a new opportunity, a personal victory, and instead of genuine enthusiasm, they immediately say things like, "Anyone could have done that. You just got lucky. It's not that impressive." Watch carefully. People who are secretly jealous rarely attack your success directly at first. Instead, they reduce its value, because admitting your progress would force them to confront something uncomfortable inside themselves. And human nature hates comparison, especially when someone close suddenly evolves faster than expected. This is why some people become distant the moment your life improves. Not because you changed into someone worse, but because your growth silently reminds them of their own frustrations. The strange thing about jealousy is that it often hides behind fake rationality. They pretend they are being objective, realistic, honest. But deep down, your success disturbs the image they had of you, especially if they were used to feeling superior, more accomplished, more stable than you. Nietzsche often observed that resentment grows when people feel powerless to become what they admire. And this is why secretly jealous people sometimes react with subtle sarcasm instead of support. Because your progress creates psychological tension inside them, a tension between who they are and who they wish they had become. Sometimes the jealousy becomes even more visible in group settings. You receive praise, and suddenly one person interrupts to mention your past mistakes, your weaknesses, or someone better than you, almost instinctively, as if they need to rebalance the attention. Have you ever wondered why some people seem uncomfortable when others celebrate you? Because admiration directed toward you can feel like a personal defeat to someone secretly competing with you. One of the darkest signs of hidden jealousy is not how someone reacts to your success. It's how they react to your suffering. Watch carefully. Some people become strangely more present the moment your life starts collapsing. When you fail, they suddenly become warmer, more talkative, more comfortable around you, almost relieved. At first, this behavior is difficult to notice because they hide it behind concern. They ask questions, they offer sympathy, they act supportive. But something feels slightly off. Their curiosity seems too interested. Have you ever noticed how certain people suddenly become emotionally available only when you are struggling? That is rarely accidental, because secretly jealous people often experience what psychologists call emotional compensation. Your pain temporarily reduces the discomfort created by your success. In other words, your fall restores emotional balance inside them. This is why some people unconsciously feel calmer when successful individuals encounter problems. Not because they are evil, but because comparison deeply influences human emotions. Jung believed that people often hide the parts of themselves they are ashamed of. And jealousy is one of the emotions people hide the most, because nobody wants to see themselves as resentful. So instead of admitting envy, the mind disguises it as concern, as realism, as subtle emotional distance. But human behavior always leaks the truth eventually. Watch how someone reacts. When your relationship fails, when your project struggles, when your confidence weakens. Do they become strangely energized? Do they suddenly start giving advice with unusual confidence? Do they look almost comfortable discussing your problems? Sometimes, hidden jealousy reveals itself through tiny expressions people cannot fully control. A slight smile, a calmer tone, a look of satisfaction that disappears in seconds. Because deep down, your difficulties reassure them. The uncomfortable truth is this. Some people do not necessarily want to destroy your life. They simply feel safer when you stop rising above them. Secret jealousy almost always creates invisible competition, even when you never agreed to compete. Have you ever noticed how some people constantly bring themselves into every conversation about your life? You talk about your progress, your goals, your experiences, and somehow they immediately redirect the attention back to themselves. You bought something, they bought something better. You achieved something important, they know someone who achieved more. You share a personal victory, they suddenly start listing their own accomplishments. Watch carefully. This is rarely confidence. True confidence does not feel threatened by another person's growth. People who are internally secure usually celebrate success naturally. But secretly jealous individuals experience your progress as comparison pressure. And comparison changes behavior in subtle ways. Nietzsche understood something disturbing about human nature. Many people do not measure happiness by peace, but by relative position. In other words, some people care less about improving their lives than about making sure others do not rise above them. This is why hidden jealousy often creates passive competition, not open rivalry, something quieter, more psychological. They begin copying your behavior, imitating your interests, monitoring your progress, comparing lifestyles, tracking your relationships, observing your social recognition, sometimes obsessively. And the strange thing is, they may not even fully realize they are doing it. Because envy often operates unconsciously, especially among friends, colleagues, siblings, cousins, long-term social circles. The closer the social proximity, the stronger the comparison tends to become. Have you ever wondered why strangers sometimes support you more sincerely than people who have known you for years? Because strangers are not emotionally attached to the version of you that stayed small, but people close to you often built a psychological hierarchy around who you were, and when you evolve, that hierarchy becomes unstable. This is why secretly jealous people sometimes react strangely to your transformation, not because your success hurts them directly, but because it forces them to question their own choices, their own discipline, their own potential, and the life they settled for. And for many people, that realization is deeply uncomfortable. The most dangerous thing about hidden jealousy is that it does not always look aggressive. Sometimes it looks normal, friendly, polite, even supportive. And this is why most people never notice it until the damage is already happening. Watch carefully. A secretly jealous person will rarely say, "I envy you." Instead, the jealousy slowly leaks into their behavior. They exclude you subtly, diminish your ideas, question your decisions, spread small doubts about you, or quietly celebrate your absence. Not enough to appear openly hostile, just enough to slowly weaken your image. And the unsettling part is this: the more successful, disciplined, respected, or emotionally stable you become, the more visible you become psychologically. Human beings constantly compare themselves socially. Adler believed that feelings of inferiority shape much of human behavior, and when someone feels stuck in life, your progress can unintentionally become a mirror they cannot avoid.
This is why hidden jealousy sometimes appears even when you never tried to impress anyone. Your existence alone becomes emotionally provocative, especially if you remain calm, independent, confident, or difficult to manipulate. Because people often tolerate weakness more easily than silent strength.
Have you ever noticed how certain people become colder when you stop seeking validation? That is not always coincidence. Some relationships unconsciously depend on imbalance. As long as you were insecure, dependent, constantly available, or less successful, the dynamic felt comfortable. But the moment you grow, some people begin feeling emotionally displaced. And this creates something very dangerous: silent resentment. Not explosive hatred, something quieter. A hidden desire to see you lose your confidence, to see you make mistakes, to see you return to the version of yourself they felt superior to. But here is the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. Sometimes, without realizing it, you may also have felt this emotion toward others. Because jealousy is deeply human. Almost everyone experiences it at some point. The difference is not whether jealousy exists. The difference is whether someone controls it or lets it quietly poison the way they treat people.
And that is why human nature becomes so difficult to read. Because the people smiling beside you may secretly be competing with you in silence. Human jealousy rarely announces itself openly. It hides behind smiles, behind politeness, behind humor, behind concern. But with time, patterns begin to appear. The cold reactions to your success, the strange comfort during your failures, the constant comparisons, the subtle attempts to diminish your value. And eventually, you begin to understand something most people never realize. Not everyone around you wants to see you grow beyond the version they became comfortable with. Because human relationships are often shaped by invisible hierarchies. The moment you evolve, some people feel inspired, others feel threatened. And the dangerous part is that hidden jealousy does not always come from enemies. Sometimes, it comes from people who remained close enough to observe your transformation in silence. But this episode is not about becoming paranoid. It is about becoming aware. Because once you understand these behaviors, you stop taking certain reactions personally. You realize that some people are not reacting to who you are, but to what your growth awakens inside them. I am the watcher, and here, in Shadow Insight, we observe the truths hidden beneath human behavior. If this episode made you reflect on someone in your life, leave a comment below and subscribe to Shadow Insight for more explorations into the hidden mechanisms of human nature. But before you leave, ask yourself this: when people suddenly change around you, is it really because you changed, or because your growth forced them to see themselves differently?